Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
Good morning, I'm Rob Woodard, and this is Sunday Journal. Today I'm joined by maritime transportation expert, Captain Thomas Bushy, who is advocating for a third bridge over the Cape Cod Canal. Good morning, Captain Bushy. Welcome.
Good morning, Rob. Nice being here.
Why don't you tell me your thoughts with regard to this subject?
Well, I've been advocating for probably nearly 20 years for the Massachusetts to team up with the federal authorities and build a new bridge over the Cape Cod Canal, a bridge that is more modern, more capable, less prone to maintenance problems. And there's ways to make it work as far as the infrastructure and the connectors to the other highways.
Now, where exactly are you suggesting that they place this bridge?
It's a position just west of the Herring Run, about midway through the Cape Cod Canal. People would know it from the area near the high-tension lines that go there.
Okay, and so you're saying that there's already infrastructure in place in that area, or would it be an entirely new project on both sides of the canal, or how would it connect to the existing roadway?
Well, it doesn't connect exactly right now, but on the west side of the canal, the section of 25, Route 25, State Highway 25, makes a big bend around Hope Ingersoll's farm, and it makes a big bend to the north before it goes down to the Bourne Bridge. At an area called Bournedale, there's actually a road there called Bournedale Road. In that vicinity is exactly 1 mile to the Cape Cod Canal, so there'd be a nice way to put an exit off at 25, a mile from the canal. On the other side, it's mainly federal property associated with the Mass Military Reservation, and they could make a connector from there right over to Route 6.
And I noticed that in the letter that you presented to the Cape Cod Commission, you suggest that something similar to what the bridge that has been built over the Connecticut River in Old Saybrook. Why don't you describe that bridge and why you would advocate for a bridge of that type to be built in this situation?
Well, structurally, it's not a suspension bridge. It's a pedestal bridge, and it was built, I don't exactly know how they built it, but they built it in sections and they extended it out. And it possesses 4 lanes of travel in each way with a breakdown lane on each side. So you have effectively 6 lanes going in each direction over the Connecticut River. And it's a Connecticut River at that spot's much wider than the Cape Cod Canal. So it really wouldn't be that long a bridge, and the approaches aren't that bad because the spot I've selected, you have pretty high terrain on each side of the canal.
And that bridge, if memory serves, is concrete, is that correct?
Well, it's steel with concrete. So
okay.
In other words, it's a steel structure, and then they put it in place, and then they pour concrete around the steel.
And is that an effort to make the bridge more durable, longer lasting?
Well, steel and concrete have the equal coefficients of expansion, so it weathers well. I'm not saying it would last forever, but it certainly doesn't require painting, and they go in occasionally and repair concrete chips and stuff.
What sort of response are you getting from the authorities and the officials to whom you are presenting this idea?
None.
They don't respond at all?
Negligibly.
Have you had any other outside assistance from, business owners? Are there other people that are joining with you in this effort?
Whenever I speak with anybody, I send them that same document you have in front of you. And it's a grassroots kind of thing, I suppose. Mm-hmm. It's just an idea that's been in my mind for a long time. And I drive over the Bourne Bridge each and every day. And when there's maintenance on the bridge, it's a headache. And the weekends in the summer, of course, are a headache. And it would probably make my commute a little bit longer, but by the time the bridge was done, I'd probably be retired, I suppose.
Right. So, okay, here's the big question. Who's going to pay for this? How much do you think it would be? Where would the money come from?
Well, obviously it would have to come from federal highway dollars, and they would have to figure out a way to extend 495 down 25, and then it would be connecting to US 6 on the route on the Cape. So it would probably be I don't know how that works. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a state transportation official, and I don't know exactly how all that system works, but I know that they can petition the federal government to look at this, and the federal highway system can take a look at it, and then they can figure out a way how to share the expense.
And how long have you been presenting this idea to government officials?
Since 1997.
And absolutely no response thus far.
No.
Right. So when you talk about the use of the canal by ships and other vessels that need to transit the canal, how high would this bridge have to be?
Well, the bridges now have 135 feet of clearance, which is more than adequate for 90% of the traffic that goes through there. And that's kind of a combination of the fact that the canal's controlling depth is only 32 feet. If the bridges were higher, if they built a higher bridge, and of course the railroad bridge is still a future problem too, but if they built a higher bridge, larger ships or taller ships could go through the Cape Cod Canal. What comes to my mind are not only container ships, but passenger ships. Most of the passenger ships today are 150, 160 foot of air draft. So bringing and that spot where we're looking at could easily give you 160, 170 feet of elevation over the canal. And then once the bridges were higher, the Army Corps of Engineers might consider dredging the canal. The canal was originally designed for 40-foot draft. They never brought it down there. So engineering-wise, the canal could handle a 40-foot draft ship.
Where is it now?
32.
Okay, so an additional 8 feet of draft, and
Yeah.
so you're suggesting if they did build these bridges that you could then move cruise ships and other larger vessels that are currently able to go through there?
Well, not many self-propelled vessels like tankers and container ships go through the canal as it is. I mean, I think occasionally you see a car carrier coming down from Boston or something, but mainly it's barge traffic. But it would be an alternative. I mean, it shortens the route from Boston to New York or Portland to New York by 120 miles.
Sure. I'm talking with Captain Thomas Bushy. He's a marine transportation expert here on Sunday Journal. What would you do with regard to the older bridges? Would you leave them in place, or what would be your suggestion with regard to that?
No, I think that those bridges have reached a point where the amount of maintenance time and effort and money it takes to keep them up makes them not viable any longer. So I would, of course, if I'm talking about making a bridge that has higher air clearance, air draft capability, those other bridges would be in the way. So those bridges would go.
For the audience and for myself, in all candor, can you discuss what air draft actually is?
The distance from the water to the bottom of the bridge.
Okay.
Or
okay.
The distance from the water line of the ship to the top of its mast.
Okay. And so if there were a new bridge there, you would suggest taking down the old bridges and just completely eliminating them? Wouldn't we have kind of the same problem in that, we'd build a new bridge, but then we'd be taking away 4 other lanes of traffic?
Well, no, it'd be the equal number of lanes. You only have 2 lanes in each direction now.
Right.
On one bridge and 2 lanes in one direction on the other. That's 4. The bridge I described has 4 lanes of traffic each direction.
Okay, so you'd have an additional 2 lanes than what's currently there.
And they would have modern approaches, and the lanes would be 12 feet wide like they build them now. You wouldn't have all the constriction of the nervous driver that's doesn't like going over a narrow bridge with a 10-foot lane. Right.
Yeah, I share your concern with regard that I'm also shocked that there aren't more incidents on those bridges given how narrow they are. And so this is an idea obviously that many people have considered. There have been discussions, obviously, about a third bridge for quite a while now. What makes your proposal different from some of the others that you've heard about?
Well, my most recent comment was based upon the story in the local newspaper about adding a similar bridge to the Sagamore Bridge adjacent to the Sagamore Bridge. And it doesn't make any sense to me to build a bridge of similar design to work in an on-Cape lane and have the older bridge for off-Cape. Sooner or later, that bridge is going to fail. It's going to require maintenance. I just don't see it alleviating anything in the long term.
Now, how about there are also ideas that in order to pay for a new bridge, there would be some sort of a toll instituted either for people coming on Cape or, I think that was the thing, people coming on Cape. would that be an idea that you would be amenable to if any of this were to come to fruition? How would you would that be something that you would be okay with regard to helping to pay for this new thing?
Well, no one likes to pay tolls. They consider it a tax, but it costs a lot of money to get into New York City. It costs money to come over the Mystic River Bridge in Boston. And it's a reality when they build something new like the Ted Williams Tunnel, that it's a toll. I mean, I know it's a tax, and I appreciate that, but the benefits outweigh it. I mean, the benefit outweighs the fact that maybe it could be built without a toll. If there's enough federal money, enough oomph behind it, it may not need a toll.
You've also talked about if we did have another bridge and you could get some different types of vessels through there, that it would actually contribute to tourism. Why don't you discuss that a little bit?
Well, I don't know how much tourism per se for the Cape, but I mean, if a passenger ship loads out in Boston, they take about 160 passenger ships a year. It might be a cause for them to take a trip through the Cape Cod Canal as part of the voyage. That makes people's awareness of the Cape Cod a little greater. I think that the new bridges might, everyone worries about a new bridge adding more people to the Cape. I don't see how these smaller bridges have done anything to stop that. People are still going to come. I think people come to the Cape based upon the number of homes, bedrooms, hotel rooms, rental units, everything they have. That's why they come to Cape, and the day trippers are just incidental to that. So I think that the real problem, our traffic control problem, or our density of population on Cape Cod, shouldn't be built upon a bridge.
You've also discussed the environment with the prospect of taller ships being better, and it could possibly avoid error with regard to navigation. So can you discuss that briefly?
Well, the higher bridges, let me choose my words carefully there. You started to say environments.
Well,
it's
one of the, you say the prospect of taller ships would allow the Army Corps of Engineers to proceed with dredging, and then that would thereby allow larger ships to come in without the danger of grounding.
Well, anytime you're deep in a channel, you make it easier. Right now, there are certain restrictions on going through the Cape Cod Canal based upon the time of day and the time of the tide, the stage of the tide. So that might be eliminated in some way. It makes it a little safer. But, of course, the people that are navigating through the canals, the pilots and the captains, they know the rules, and they don't go aground all that often, if extremely infrequently, grounding in the Cape Cod Canal. It just doesn't happen. I think environmentally, I think that the shipping possibility could expand perhaps some service of container ships between the Middle States and New York area to New England. And you take a ship, go through there, a ship can carry 5,000 containers, take 5,000 trucks off the highway. And trucks are the most inefficient way of moving our freight in the United States of America. Shipping's the most efficient way. So if you enhance shipping potential, you can make it better for the environment. You reduce the carbon footprint of every truck that goes down the highway.
I'm talking with maritime transportation expert Captain Thomas Bushy. We're discussing the possibility of a third bridge. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience with maritime navigation and your expertise?
Oh, I've been a licensed master for 35 years. I'm a master of a ship now. I go through the Cape Cod Canal a couple times a year. I am involved very deeply with navigation safety with the United States Coast Guard. I participate on Coast Guard committees from everything from navigation safety to security. I'm cognizant of the maritime industry fully. I lend my expertise freely as best I can. I don't make any extra money with it, I don't think.
Well, it's something obviously you're very passionate about. So when you present these ideas, I'm kind of surprised that you haven't seen any sort of response from any governmental official or anybody in a position to actually make some of this happen. How do you proceed? How are you going to proceed moving forward? Are you just going to keep bringing the idea up and just kind of going along?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, when someone asks me about it or asks my opinion, I send them a copy of my letter. So that letter goes out probably 15, 20 times a month to people. I think more and more people will become aware of it, and more people will speak to their representatives about it, the transportation authorities, and maybe someone... Like I said, it was stimulated by the fact that they came up with this idea of this other bridge most recently. And I don't think that's the solution to the problem. I would think that would be, in all candor, and I know it may sound insulting, a colossal waste of money. And so that's why it's presently on my radar to bring it up to you and to other people.
Right. And the bridges that were built in 1935, do you have experience with regard to the ongoing maintenance that's required there? Or?
Well, like I say, I go over the bridge every day.
You can see for yourself.
I had to suffer through one lane of traffic coming over the Sagamore Bridge today, coming from Buzzards Bay. So,
right.
I don't know the exact details of, what the structural condition is. I'm sure wouldn't let 53-foot tractor-trailer trucks go over if they felt it was structurally weak.
Sure.
But like I say, it's those cars and trucks are coming in at highway speeds now and going over a bridge that was designed to have people go over it at 40 miles per hour. When those trucks take a bounce, they must be putting some real stress on those bridges.
Indeed they are. I've felt those bounces. Okay, I've been talking with maritime expert Thomas Bushy, Captain Thomas Bushy, on Sunday Journal. That's going to conclude the interview at this time, and I assume that you're just going to keep on keeping on with this effort.
Well, it's a hobby. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much. Good to have you. I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.